North Korea, or the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, is located north of South Korea. It's one of only 7 communist countries and worked off a planned economic regime. Current estimates place its GDP growth rate at -5% and a per capita GDP of $1,000 pre-COVID. Surprisingly, they're not so forthcoming about their metrics. I would tell you what the rate of inflation is, but nobody knows what I choose this country. The good. In a 2009 report, Goldman Sachs estimated that North Korea's capital city sits upon mineral deposits worth some $3.7 trillion. Japan, who prior to the end of World War II were occupying Korea, were very aware of this fact and began setting off mines all across North Korea, which then, post-Japanese capitulation, fell back in the hands of North Korea. So this actually ties into the reason that we don't have much accurate statistics around production, workers, population, all that stuff. You know, the things that may be important for a centrally planned economy. Because the state was previously being run by the Japanese, no Korean natives had much experience within this field, and so much of that stuff didn't get tracked, unfortunately. Land was redistributed, industry was nationalized, the communist state was formed, and Kim Il-sung ascended to godhood. They held all the figgy pudding. Aside from the figgy pudding, as unlike before, where Japan had both halves of Korea and therefore shared resources, North Korea was now left without enough food, and so, as all reasonable people would do, they waged war against an American-backed South Korea, doing this with the support of the Soviet Union. They lost, really bad, really badly. To the point where, by the end of the war, America dropped more bombs on North Korea than they had throughout the whole of World War II. Those lovely industries that they cherished so much were completely destroyed. So, your country was just bombed back into the Stone Age. Your land isn't fit for food. You soured any chance of a relationship with your closest lifeline, and now you're stuck on life support, being kept afloat by a country in a rapid decline of its own. Where do you go from here? Apparently an economic golden age. How the hell did this happen? Well, key to this recovery was the support of fellow socialist nations, particularly the Soviet Union and China. Despite key values developed within North Korea of self-reliance and hard work, which in themselves were a great boon in this revival, without this support, North Korea would most likely face complete collapse. This support came in many forms, from enormous debt relief, 1.65 billion patron aid for infrastructure, and tens of thousands of workers sent to rebuild. This support was key to creating the strongest economy North Korea had ever experienced. Even the CIA had praised North Korea, acknowledging its improvement in the status of women, free housing, free healthcare, and a life expectancy of 72 years. This is America complementing a communist regime that they fought against not even 10 years prior. How could this possibly go wrong? The everything else. Since the beginning, North Korea had been specialized into heavy industries. This is pretty normal for most countries, just like the UK is specialized into services. Allocating 80% of your resources into heavy industry is not specialization. That is a glass cannon economy. Okay, so spoiler or warning for this next part. If you don't want to be spoiled on some major events in the story, please skip to this timestamp. Okay. Oops. What do you mean 10% of our population just died? Well, the collapse of the Soviet Union was a huge blow to North Korea and in no way should have taken it down as hard as it did. I think it would be all too easy to blame this on communism. And while yes, it was undeniably a compounding factor, I think their greatest failing was in their overcommitment and focus on so-called self-reliance. For one, the focus on self-reliance demanded a strong military, and just like with their industry, they invested way too heavily into this, having around 5% of their population in active duty. Its massive nuclear weapons program further isolated them, as other countries would place sanctions upon them, these sanctions limiting their ability to sell goods during the famine, running them dry of funds, making them incapable of affording the food that would have saved their people. These trade sanctions are also the reason why now 80% of their exports go to China, which is another example of a huge reliance on one unstable point. By this point in time, South Korea has far outstripped the North, these days having a GDP 70 times its size. North Korea obviously hated this, their whole culture and civilization being built upon the fundamental idea that this was the best way, that their unshakable leader would guide them to the top, and North Korea knew this grip would come undone at the first sight of Jimin. North Korea has spent much of their recent years attempting to solidify their desired image, spending 3% of their GDP on a still unfinished building that they, to this day, use Photoshop to cover up. As of today, North Korea stands as a case study on how not to run an economy. Its floundering economy now held together by duct tape and string, enemies kept at bay by the threat of mutually assured destruction. I'm not sure if this even counts as a developing country. Maybe I did the assignment wrong. Anyway, thanks for watching.